Andor Season 2, Episodes 7 through 9 were released this week, and I watched them the night they came out on Tuesday. And I've kind of slacked on actually filming this video, but I really want to film a video over these episodes before it gets too late. Because this truly, I feel like, is going to go down as one of my favorite Star Wars episodes, just like specific episodes in general. Honestly, across all of the Star Wars, and possibly even across all television in general. Like, that's how good these episodes are. I honestly haven't been enjoying the first half of season 2 as much as I did the first season. The first 6 episodes of season 2 were still really good, don't get me wrong. And I've especially rewatched the first 3 episodes just today. And I've actually liked them a lot more than I did the first time watching it. And I feel like 4, 5, and 6 also would probably be the same way once I rewatch them. But this show really hit the gas pedal hardcore in these 3 episodes, 7, 8, 9. And I want to focus on episode 8 first, because episode 7 obviously was a really good episode as well, but it was more of a setup kind of episode for the next 2 episodes. But episode 8 is where things go down, and things go down in ways that I did not expect, especially in a Star Wars show. Even watching the first season and watching the first 6 episodes of this show, knowing what kind of show this was, I was still surprised with how dark episode 8 got, with how visceral episode 8 got. It was so intense from the beginning to the end. Just the setup, the crescendo, the payoff, and then the aftermath, all contained in this one episode, was just fantastic to watch in the most dark of ways, but the best of ways as well. Now I'm going to go into spoilers, so if you haven't seen episodes 7 through 9 in season 2 yet, I strongly urge you to go watch those episodes first and then come back to this video. But episode 8, there's so many heavy and dark moments throughout this episode. From the very beginning, whenever they're setting up this whole situation to where the Gorman citizens are starting this peaceful protest because of everything that's happened there throughout the Empire's reign, and especially these past few years of them building this armory in their plaza where so many of their citizens were massacred. And then Cyril slowly figuring out that what they're doing on Gorman, him and Dedra, it's not actually for something good, because he's always been driven by law and order. That's been his main motivation. Everything he's done, he believes is the truly right thing to do. But he's in a situation now to where he's realizing what they're doing on this planet isn't actually for any reason a good thing. And they're actually kind of the bad guys. It kind of reminds me of that one meme where it's like, are we the baddies? And he slowly realizes that, hey, maybe we are the bad guys. And this goes against everything that I try to accomplish with my career. And you have that dark moment where he's talking to Dedra and he actually starts choking her to make her confess the truth of what they really are doing there. And then once he learns, he just completely storms out and completely gives up on everything they've been doing there, and you just see the weight of everything that he's realizing in that moment on his face. And then even on Dedra's side, even though she's been kind of the person who's been putting this whole plan together, I mean, she was kind of forced into this job pretty much by Krennic. She was still pretty involved in coming up with this plan of what to do with Gorman. And then she is the one who gives the go-ahead to start the chain reaction that started this whole riot and this whole massacre that happened in the plaza. And then you have Cassian on that same planet too, in that same area, trying to assassinate Dedra for everything that she's done. And it's just such great writing, just having all these characters in this one place organically. And then you have that moment with Cassian when he's talking to the person in the front desk of the hotel he was staying at, who recognized him as a rebel. And that guy, before everything goes down, he tells Cassian that rebellions are built on hope, which is a line that Jyn Erso used in Rogue One. And it kind of adds weight to that her saying that in Rogue One, because Cassian hears that and he probably has flashbacks to this very day, the Gorman massacre, and it probably gives him just that much more motivation to follow along with what Jyn Erso is saying and her plans and her what she's wanting to accomplish. But then you have the massacre that actually starts happening, which it starts off with the Empire killing and sacrificing one of their own people just to start, just to break the tension and have the Gorman people think that they're being shot at. So it causes this whole situation. And then you have the Empire stormtroopers who are there, who are like new people. They're young new people. They made a big point about they're like just young people and inexperienced people. So you have these two sides who don't know who shot first, and it doesn't even matter who shot first because now they're shooting and everybody's going to get into the violence now that the tension has been broke. It was just such an organic build up to this one single moment that completely breaks hell loose. And I gotta say, this massacre is one of the most brutal, visceral, just dark and heavy scenes I've seen in any Star Wars movie or TV show or anything. And I'm honestly surprised that Disney has let this show be so serious and dramatic and everything that it needs to be, because this massacre just felt like you're watching just like an actual like war massacre happen. People are dying left and right in like extremely realistic kind of ways. People are being thrown and dying by their head hitting the ground, and they're showing their dead bodies with their eyes still wide open. The KX droids in this scene are just like completely horrific. It's almost like a horror movie that you're watching. I've never seen droids in Star Wars be as terrifying as they are in this scene. And when I say it's like a horror movie, I don't mean like a fun popcorn type of horror movie. I mean like a truly dreadful type of horror movie to where there's an unstoppable being just chasing after everybody that's in sight, including you. And then you have the fight between Cassian and Cyril, which has been built up through these past 2 seasons. Cyril has been hunting Cassian down all of the first season. He hasn't really been focused on Cassian this season because he's been doing the Gorman project, trying to shut down this rebel group. But he sees Cassian in the midst of all this chaos with the massacre that's happening. He sees Cassian and he just sees red pretty much, and he completely attacks him, and it stops Cassian from assassinating Dedra, which that's what he's focused on. So these two are clashing, and honestly, this fight, the way they choreographed it, it's honestly one of the most realistic fights I've seen in any kind of TV show or movie or anything, because it feels like two people who aren't like martial artists. They're not Jedi. They don't have like necessarily like formal training for fighting, but it just feels like two people fighting against each other and trying to do anything to get the upper hand. Cassian is throwing stuff at Cyril, like glass and bottles and all that, and the punches that are thrown and land just feels like just like a real fight, honestly. And then you got like bombs being thrown, grenades and everything that they're having to avoid, and Cassian's climbing over the bar counter and all that, and it all culminates into this one moment to where Cyril has a gun pointed at Cassian, kind of has the upper hand, and Cassian just says, "Who are you?" And it's such a simple but powerful line, because Cyril, like I said, this entire time, he's been on an obsessive manhunt for Cassian. And he probably attributes his life going downhill, especially in the first season, the first 3 episodes. His life really went downhill and really dramatically changed entirely after those events happened. And then throughout the rest of the season, he was obsessed with trying to find Cassian. And then to finally come face to face with this man, and he says, "Who are you?" He doesn't even know who you are. It's just such a profound kind of realization, and just a moment for Cyril to be like, my mortal enemy doesn't even know who I am. And then it's enough to make him pause and put down his gun for just a second. And then he's shot by one of the Gorman rebel I forgot what they're called. Gorman Front, I think, is what they're called. And which I do want to give high praise for all the acting. I was going to mention this later, but since I'm talking about this older man from the Gorman Front, because he did fantastic in this episode. He really elevated a lot of the dramatic tension, especially from the Gorman side. But all the acting in this episode, well, the show entirely, but this episode especially, every actor is on their A game. Every actor is fantastic in bringing out the emotion that is needed for this kind of event. And then towards the end of the episode, there's this great scene where they don't show her face. I'm not sure if she's one of the Gorman they showed previously in any of the episodes, but you just hear her voice, and she's given this message through the radio, and it's honestly one of the most haunting pieces of dialogue I've heard, especially in this show. I would honestly put it in one of the top like monologues that have been in this show, and there's been some great monologues in this show, so that's saying a lot. Because the true terror in her voice is just so haunting, the emotion that's in her voice and the words that she's saying. It honestly feels like something that was ripped straight out of an actual war documentary in the real world, because it just feels that authentic, the emotions that she has in her voice. I don't know what the actress's name is who did that part, but it truly was one of my favorite parts of this episode, because it just added so much emotion, especially to the aftermath of everything that just happened. And honestly, it almost brought me to tears, just that. And then all the scenes that they're showing of all the people, all the Gormans who are injured, and just the emotion on their faces. Then Cassian, the close-up of his face and the single tear that started to fall down his face, just as he takes in everything that just happened, everything that he just experienced and witnessed. And then you have Dedra like fixing her collar and trying to fix her uniform and everything, and just having a like true panic attack because of everything that she caused. And then probably she found out that Cyril had been killed in the massacre. Like, you just have such complex characters in the show on both sides, and you truly feel the oppression and the horrors that the Empire brings upon the people across the galaxy. You feel that so much more in this show than you do on any other Star Wars content, and it really brings so much weight to the original trilogy, and it brings so much satisfaction when the Death Star is finally destroyed, and then just Luke joining the Rebel Alliance and all of his group, the journey that they go on, and them finally bringing down the Empire in the original trilogy, which, spoilers if you haven't seen the original trilogy somehow. But it just brings a whole other level of satisfaction watching that journey and watching them coming out victorious after watching everything that the Empire has done in this show, and feeling that true weight and power and oppressiveness and absolute dreadfulness that the Empire imposes on its citizens. It's just, I can't recommend this show enough, honestly. But then we go into episode 9, and I might not talk too much about this episode, because I do plan on making a full video once the season is over. And so I don't want to talk too much. And plus, this video is probably already pretty long, and probably longer than I was wanting it to be originally. But these episodes was just so good, I could talk about it all day. But episode 9 is pretty much all about Mon Mothma finally giving her big speech to the Senate and to the galaxy in general, because I'm pretty sure it's broadcast like across the galaxy. But she is giving a speech to formally call out Emperor Palpatine, which has never really been done before by anybody, because they're all scared to like upset him. I mean, she's definitely been a thorn in his side, probably. She's been going against a lot of policies that the Empire has been trying to put in place, but she's never really formally called Emperor Palpatine himself out by name and called him the things that she's called him in the speech that she gives in this episode. So the whole episode is about building the tension to her finally going out in front of the Senate and giving that speech. And then you have the whole behind the scenes of trying to plan her escape once she gives a speech. And you have the whole thing of Belgrana has his people like plan to escort her out, but then his people are compromised without him knowing it. And then you have Mon Mothma not fully trusting Luthen because Luthen's trying to tell her that Belgrana's people are compromised, but then she doesn't fully trust him to send his people to escort her because she's remembering back to what he did to Tacoma earlier this season whenever he became a liability to the rebellion. And then now she's technically becoming a liability because she's putting her face out there as being opposed to Palpatine and completely calling him out. So she's going to become a huge target for the Empire. So she could be seen as a liability to Luthen, who has proven time and time again that he's not scared to take full measures in ensuring the safety of the rebellion. But yeah, so Luthen decides to send Cassian Andor, which is a cool moment because Cassian Andor and Mon Mothma have never met this entire series. So it's cool to see those two storylines collide. It's almost like, which Better Call Saul spoilers I'm about to say, but it's almost like when in Better Call Saul, whenever Lalo and Howard are in the same room in the last season. I mean, it's a completely different situation, but it's these two very different storylines. One is like this lawful side of the story, and the other is the front lines, the dark and grimy side of it things, and they're finally merging in this one episode, and organically too. But she gives her speech in front of the Senate, and it's this whole, even that is very tense because the Empire is trying to shut down this broadcast, and you're like really wanting her to get all of her message out before she's cut off, and she finally does, thankfully. And at the very end, she calls Palpatine by name, calling him out, calling him the monster that's shouting the loudest, that they're allowing themselves to be the victim of. And then as Cassian is escorting her out, which, to be fair, I do think that the escape is a little bit too easy, because, I mean, obviously they know exactly where she's at. Like, I feel like there should have been a little more obstacles, a little more trickery in how they got her out. But it was still a thrilling sequence of Cassian escorting Mon Mothma out of the building. He ends up having to kill two people to be able to fully have them escape, and it's a pretty cool like scene both times because Mon Mothma is having to sit there, and she's never had to be in the front lines seeing these full measures take place, but now she's having to be there and she's having to witness it, and it's kind of like taking her back. So it's just cool to see her in a situation that she's not used to. And then it says that she's going to be handed off and transported to Yavin 4 by the Gold Squadron, which if you've seen Star Wars Rebels, you know that means that she's going to be handed off to the Ghost Crew from Star Wars Rebels, the main characters of Star Wars Rebels, the animated show. And it's just funny to think that Mon Mothma is gonna go from the horrifyingly realistic and grounded world of Andor to being handed off to the Ghost Crew from Star Wars Rebels. Which, I mean, I like Star Wars Rebels, but they are two very, very different shows with very different target audiences. So it's just funny, these two shows colliding in this very monumental moment, which is also really cool because Erskine, her like right-hand man that she's had the past couple of episodes, he's actually in that Star Wars Rebels episode where they pick her up and transport her to Yavin 4. But yeah, if anything, this show could be considered a prequel to Star Wars Rebels Season 3, Episode 18. Just specifically that episode. We do have 3 more episodes after this are coming out next week, which I do know that Tony Gilroy has said that this show is going to lead directly into the first scene that we see Cassian Andor in Rogue One. So I'm excited to see how they're going to do that. I don't know if they're going to be able to top this arc, these 3 episodes, but they don't necessarily need to. They just need to be a good closeout and bridging the gap between this show and Rogue One. Honestly, episode 9 could have been a series finale, but I am excited to see what they're going to do with these last 3 episodes, how it's going to tie into Rogue One, and I'm probably going to watch Rogue One immediately after watching the last episode. But yeah, I really truly feel like any fan of Star Wars, and really any person in general, they don't even have to like Star Wars, has to watch this show, because this show is not only peak Star Wars, but it is peak television in general. And I don't even say that ironically. I say that truly, genuinely, because this show is honestly one of the best pieces of media ever written, in my opinion.